Ayo, Fat Lizard Boy here. This is gonna be my first what if, and this is my fourth take at it because I keep on messing up. God damn it. So, I will say this. My first what if, I am very nervous to do this. I've messed up so many times already. And I will say this, I have taken some inspiration from YouTubers. And I will be linking their videos in the description. I highly recommend you go check them out. They make great content. They don't really know me at all. Okay, so this is going to be what if Deku had Sans' powers. So it starts off basically the same with Deku being born, right? Inko is a single mother, except when Deku is born, he is a twin. He has a twin brother. So Deku is, Izuku Midoriya. His brother will be... Hang on a second. What should it be? God damn it. His brother's name will be... Fuck, I don't know what his brother's name is gonna be. Okay, well, I just kind of messed around with Bakugo's name to make this. So his brother's name will be Kitsuki Midoriya. I don't know if that's a male or female name. I'm too lazy to check it out. So Deku is a twin. So Inko has two kids, Izuku Midoriya and Kitsuki Midoriya. So they go home, right? They grow up almost the same. They go to the quirk doctor, right? And so basically it's almost the exact same as the anime, except Deku has a twin who is more outgoing and is very extroverted, always trying to encourage Deku to be the best, try to get him into sports and everything. Well, he's basically almost the exact opposite of Deku. So they go to the quirk doctor when they're about 5. The quirk doctor says that Kitsuki does not have any quirk or special abilities at all. But Deku, on the other hand, does. And the doctor says that we have no idea what it is. It doesn't seem to be able to do anything. But we don't know what it could possibly do. So they go home. Kitsuki is kind of sad, but he's super excited for his brother, Izuku. So Izuku's kind of excited that he got his quirk, but he doesn't know what it is at all. And so the next day, they go to school. Bakugo asks Deku and Kitsuki what their quirks are. Kitsuki, kind of being sad, says he doesn't have one. Deku said, I have no idea what it is. And Bakugo is super curious, right, and super excited, thinking it's going to be a super cool, awesome quirk, right? So, so he's about 5, I'd say, about 4 or 5, Deku is. So, 3 years later, Deku's quirk is not activated at all. He still has no idea what to do about it, how to get it to work or anything. And his mother quirk is, well, she's not going to have the attraction quirk, whatever it's called in the anime. Instead, she is going to have, I'd say, pyrokinesis. The ability to control flames. Which is very cool. So, Bakugo thinks that Deku might just have a mutated quirk instead. Or I don't know how to describe it. A dormant quirk or whatever. That is like a stronger version of pyrokinesis. So, he's always trying to get Deku to activate it. Right? So, in this strife to get Deku to activate it, Bakugo starts to be rude to him. Kind of like tough love or whatever. He doesn't love him, though. They're friends, though. And so, one day, Bakugo realizes that he's not going to be able to get Deku to activate his quirk. So, he starts to pick on his brother, because Deku was the older of the twins. He's older by about 10 seconds, so not that much older. But so he starts to pick on Kitsuki, right? And Deku absolutely hated this. And all of a sudden, Deku looks at Bakugo, right? And Bakugo's just teasing, making fun of Kitsuki, trying to get Deku riled up. And so he says something that made Deku angry. I don't know what, because I'm lazy. But whenever he does this, Deku, his left eye turns blue, and his right eye, it looks like it's not even there. All of a sudden, a large bone, comes out of nowhere and flies at Bakugo, hitting him right in the back and throwing him into the wall. Deku, his eye immediately goes back to normal, both his eyes. The bone disappears and he rushes at Bakugo, wondering if he's okay. God damn it. So, he runs at Bakugo, asking if he's okay. Bakugo is super surprised now, and God fucking damn it. And is super surprised that Deku activated his quirk just like that. And Bakugo is super excited, and he tells Deku why he did it, why he was picking on his brother. Deku kind of calms down. Kitsuki runs over to Deku and is super excited, right? And so they go about their day, because this is in the bathroom, right? They were in the bathroom when this happened. I don't know why I didn't point this out. I'm an idiot. I'm mainly just freestyling this as I go along. So the rest of the day goes back normal, right? And when Deku goes home, he tells his mother what happened, about how he was able to activate his quirk and everything. She's super excited for him. Kitsuki, feeling very sad that he doesn't have it, he hides it pretty well though. And so they're like, let's go to the quirk doctor and see what else they can do. So they go, right, and they analyze it again. And the quirk doctor says this makes no sense, because his quirk doesn't seem to do this at all. And they're both his mom and his brother are kind of stunned, right? And so the quirk doctor says, we have no idea what that one ability is, because Deku wasn't able to activate it there at the quirk doctor, no matter how hard he tried. So, he says, it doesn't seem like his quirk could do that. So that must be something completely different. It must be some different kind of gene mutated or whatever. This is the only case that this has ever happened. So they thank him for his time and everything. And they pay him and everything. And they go home. And now it's very late in the day, because when they went there to get his quirk tested, it took them a few hours. So they go home, they eat dinner, and now it's almost nighttime. Deku and Kitsuki were watching a movie. So Deku and Kitsuki, they're watching a movie, and then Inka walks in and tells them it's time to go to bed. It's about 9. It's 8:30 actually. So they go up to their room and they go to sleep, right? And while Deku is asleep, he starts to dream. He has this dream of this very short skeleton man with the blue eye walks up to him, right? He says he's cracking puns all the time, and Deku finds these puns absolutely hilarious. And so this short skeleton, this 4'6" skeleton, walks over to Deku and sits down next to him on the floor. Deku doesn't know where he is. It's this strange place he doesn't know where. But he sits down, right, while they're talking. And this short skeleton man stands up and says, hey, want me to show you how to use your powers? Or whatever, I don't know. I'm very tired right now, even though it's only 12:33. And Deku, of course, says, sure, not. So, Sans, the skeleton man, short skeleton man, says, alright, I'll show you. And so he puts his hand on Deku's head, right? And so then all of a sudden Deku wakes up. And he has these strange thoughts, and he's like, he has just this urge to, I don't know, I guess use his powers. And it's kind of late at night, so he goes out into the backyard, and he has all these weird things just telling him how to do things. So he does one of them. All of a sudden, this weird dragon-like skull appears and shoots out this blue laser that hits. I'm gonna say that they have a fenced-in backyard, because Inko is kind of rich. Also, I completely forgot to say this. I'm an idiot. Hisashi is their father, but he left, and Inko married someone after Hisashi left, which this person is All Might, but he's in a Small Might form, and Midoriya and I guess I should say Izuku and Kitsuki don't know this. And so he burns a hole in his backyard fence, and he immediately gets scared and runs back inside like nothing ever happens, right? And so he just lies down. It was very late at night. It was about 2 a.m. when he woke up. And he falls asleep again. And he sees this short skeleton man again. This time, he walks up to Deku and he says, "So I see you use some of your powers, huh?" He starts cracking some jokes and stuff. I don't know, I'm not at all good at puns. And Deku starts talking to him like, "Yeah, I kind of burnt a hole in my backyard fence." Skeleton Man laughs and says, "Hey, kid." And because he never asked Deku what his name was, he goes, "What's your name?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm Izuku Midoriya." And he goes, "Okay, I'm gonna call you Midoriya." And he says, "Alright, that's fine." So he starts talking to him, right? And Izuku asks the Skeleton Man, "What's his name?" And he goes, "Oh, my name is Sans." And Izuku says, that's an interesting name." And he goes, "Yeah, kinda." So they're sitting down, right, standing back in the old place, and he says, "I see you have a secondary ability, right?" And he goes, "Quirk or whatever. It's wherever you people call it." And Izuku says, "Yeah, but the doctor said this isn't my quirk." And he goes, "Of course it's not your quirk. This is my abilities. I don't know how you got them, but you do. Yay." And Midoriya's like, "Really?" And Sans goes, "Actually, no, I have no idea what these abilities are, but they're very close to mine." And he says, "So the fact that you could summon a Gaster Blaster like that using my methods is kind of shocking to me." Midoriya says, "Yeah, I'd say I have no idea how to use the rest of them." And he goes, "I thought I showed you." He goes, "I really only know how to summon that thing. What'd you call it?" And Sans goes, "A Gaster Blaster." So Izuku says, "Okay, a Gaster Blaster, and how to summon these bones." So Sans says, "I thought I showed you more." So he shows Deku how to use all of his abilities. And he all of a sudden activates Deku's quirk, and he goes, "This is strange." Deku says, "What is it?" And Sans says, "Seems like your secondary quirk, was it? I don't know what it's called, what you people say. But it seems that you have the ability to pass on abilities. You have the ability to pass on abilities." And Deku's like, "That's very strange." And Sans says, "Yeah, that is very strange and kind of useless if you didn't have my powers. Or whatever you have, I don't know. They're basically my powers." Deku says, "Yeah." And he says, "Alright, kid, I think you should wake up now." And Deku's like, "Wait, what? Why?" He says, "From what I hear, it's almost time for you to go to school." He's like, Deku's like, crap." And Sans says, "I'll be fine." And Deku immediately wakes up. So, it's about. And so right when he wakes up, Inko walks into his room, and Deku just is sitting up, right? It just sat up as soon as Inko walked in the room. Inko's like, it's time to get dressed to go to school, so they get dressed, they eat breakfast, and they go to school. Deku tells Bakugo and Kitsuki how he figured out how to use all of his abilities. Bakugo's like, well, how'd you figure it out so fast? And Deku, not wanting to tell about the skeleton man in his dream, said, I don't know, I just started messing around in the backyard at night, and I figured it out. And Kitsuki's like, wait, is that why there's a hole in the fence in the backyard? Deku says, yeah. And Kitsuki facepalms and says, you are an idiot. And they go to their first class. The day goes basically the same as all the other days, and they go home. But this time, Deku stops Kitsuki right before they go home, and he says he wants to tell him something. And Kitsuki says, so Deku says, I think I might have the ability to pass on my powers. Kitsuki's like, wait, what? He goes, yes. From what I know, my ability my quirk should allow me to copy my abilities and give them to you. And Kitsuki's like, really? And Deku says, yeah. And so he touches Kitsuki's forehead. No. He asks Kitsuki if he want him. Kitsuki energetically says yes. So Deku touches Kitsuki's forehead. Kitsuki is a little bit taller than Deku. Not like in Undertale where Sans is 4'6" and I think Papyrus is 6'7" or something like that. It's more of Deku. Right now he's about 5 foot. I don't know what the average height for an 8-year-old is, but I'd say he's about 5'8", and his brother Kitsuki is about 5'10", which is very tall for an 8-year-old. And so he does this, right? And Kitsuki says, I don't know how to use any of my abilities, how to do it. So Deku shows him, right? And he doesn't have all of Deku's abilities. I don't know really any of Sans' abilities. I only am going off memory right now. But I don't think Papyrus can teleport, right? And so Deku says there's one ability I haven't tried out yet. And Kitsuki's like, okay, what is it? And he goes, teleportation. Kitsuki's eyes widen very much so and says, you can teleport? And Deku says, I think I can, let me try. And he tries, and he teleports inside his house. And he doesn't know how to, so he teleports back, right? And he says, that makes my stomach feel very, very weird. With a slight chuckle. Kitsuki laughs and says, how did you do it? And he explains it. Kitsuki tries, but he's unable to. And so when Deku gets home, he starts to think about it, right? And so he all of a sudden felt very tired, right? So he falls asleep on the couch. And when he's asleep, he has a dream about the short skeleton man, right? Short skeleton man walks up to him and says, hey, Midoriya. Midoriya says, hey, Sans. And they start talking, chatting for a little bit. And he says, so, I can teleport? God, what am I saying? No, God, no, I'm an idiot. So, Midoriya says, I just figured out how to teleport now. And Sans goes, oh, really? It took you that long? I thought I showed you. He goes, yeah, I just never used it. Sans is like, oh, well, you're an idiot. Midoriya says, what do you mean I'm an idiot? I've just tried it out. And Sans says, you just tried it out? You could teleport literally anywhere. You never thought that would be kind of cool to use? Like to get to school or whatever? Deku says, no, I never thought about it. Deku lets out a sigh. Sans lets out a sigh. I'm probably going to get everyone's names mixed up at least 20 times. So, Saiyan says, so what was it like teleporting? Deku says, well, I can teleport to a place with no problems, but if I teleport back, it gives me a stomachache. Saiyan says, I don't know what that feels like. And Deku says, well, of course you're a skeleton. And Saiyan says, yeah, I know. Saiyan, what am I freaking saying? I'm an idiot. Saiyan says, yeah, it's kind of obvious, I think. Seeing as how my hands are complete bones, so is my head. And Deku says, yeah, I thought it would be too. And they just had this awkward pause. And Deku says, what's it like being a skeleton? And if you hate a stupid pun, I recommend you not watch this a little bit. I recommend you skip a little bit. And Sans then says, well, if it's a skeleton of fun. Deku thought this was so stupid, he just put his hand over his face and looked down. And looks back up and says, that was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Sans says, I was kind of running out of ideas there. And Deku says, yeah, I kind of picked up on that. And he says, and Deku then says to Sans, well, I used my quirk. And he goes, oh, really? Who'd you give the abilities to? He goes, my brother. Sans says, oh, you have a brother? And Deku says, yeah, I have a brother. Sans asks, what's his brother's abilities? Deku says, he didn't have any before I gave him the quirk. Not the quirk, the abilities. And he goes, oh. Well, he shouldn't, Sans says he shouldn't be able to use all the same abilities as you. And Deku asks, so why is that? Sans says, well, from the looks of it, every time you copy it, it gets weaker for whoever you give that to. So let's say you were to copy it again. Well, let's say when you gave it to your brother, he only had 75% of the power that you had. So he'd only be able to have 75% control of it. If you gave it to someone else, they'd only have 50% of control over it. And you kept going on and on until you got into the decimals. 0.001%. So I recommend you only copy it and give it to someone if it's dire situation. Deku's like, wait, so does it weaken me or the copy? Sans says, oh, it only weakens the copy. You don't lose any strength from it. Deku says, oh, well, that's cool. So does that explain why it doesn't have all my abilities? Sans says, yeah, that's basically it. And so Deku says, okay, well, I kind of want to wake up now. And Sans says, yeah, I don't know how to help you out. I don't know how to help you with that there, bud. And so they're just sitting down with this awkward silence. God damn it. So Deku starts thinking about it, right? He says, I have an idea. Sans looks at him and says, what? Deku then immediately punches himself in the face. And he immediately wakes up. So after he wakes up, we're going to do a time skip now. Time skip to basically where the anime starts off. And so Deku's now, I think, 15, right? I don't know. It's been a while since I saw the beginning. And so it's the last day of their school and everything. And so in this one, I think you've already kind of guessed that Bakugo and Deku are friends, as well as Katsuki. Bakugo now likes Katsuki a lot more because he has a quirk, right? And so when Deku's 15, he's about 5'11", and his brother is 6'1", because his brother's about 2 to 3 inches taller than Deku. So, I mean, if you don't use feet, I'm sorry. I don't know how to convert over because I'm dumb. So, where's that? Okay, so it's the last day, right? Teacher throws the papers up saying, I know what you all want to be heroes and everything. Same goes the exact same, except Deku is not like at all nervous or anything about going to UA. He thinks he'll pass pretty good. And now at this point, he's taken on completely all of Sand's traits, not all of them. But like, he's very lazy, likes to sleep a lot, doesn't really care about a lot of things, cracks puns all the time, telling jokes at every opportunity. And he is also, so he's kind of like, so he's basically just Sans, except if you were to take Sans and Midoriya and you mix them together, he's kind of like that. So he's leaning back in his chair at school with his feet up. He doesn't have a hoodie. What am I thinking? So he's leaning back, trying to stay awake. And so after that, they walk out of class, right? And Bakugo says that he's excited to go to UA and everything, right? Deku says, "You think you'll make it in?" Bakugo says, "Of course I'll make it in." And so he asked Deku, "Do you think you'll make it in?" Deku says, "I don't know, but I don't really care." Bakugo says, "What do you mean you don't care?" He's like, "I just don't care if I make it in or not." It's like, okay, well, fine, whatever. And so all three of them are gonna go join UA, right? And so on their way home, they're all walking together, right? Except Bakugo walks, like, they split off from each other. Bakugo goes down one way, right? Because they live kind of close together, not that close. So when Bakugo goes that way, Deku and Kitsuki are walking home. And on their way home, right, they I don't know exactly how this should work, but they somehow run into the sludge villain, right? And Deku and Kitsuki start to Deku and Kitsuki use their powers to kind of mess with the sludge villain, because they don't really care about him, because see, Deku manipulated gravity or whatever to hold the sludge villain down, right? And so, until a pro hero came by, and the sludge villain tries to get away, but he can't move. And All Might shows up, right? And Deku is still liking All Might a lot, but not like as fanboyish, because he's just lazy. He says, "Oh, hey, All Might." And All Might's like, "Oh, hey, kids, thanks for holding down the sludge villain for me." And the entire time, Sludge Villain is screaming, trying to get away, saying, "Oh God, no, I don't want to go to prison again." As All Might walks over there, scoops him up, and puts him in a jar, right? And they start talking. Deku and Kitsuki are talking to All Might, right? Not knowing that he's actually their stepdad. And so they're talking, right? And he compliments them on their abilities and how strong they are and how they'll make fine heroes one day, right? And so All Might says, "I have to go." And he jumps away, right? But as he jumps away, Deku turns around. So Deku starts walking away as soon as All Might jumps. And after All Might jumps, he turns around real quick to see that the thing that the sludge villain the jar that the sludge villain was in had slipped out of his pocket, right? And so Deku grabs a hold of Kitsuki, I'm an idiot, and teleports him over to All Might, right? And he says to All Might, "Hey, All Might, you dropped the sludge guy." All Might's like, "Ah, crap." And he turns around and sees that the sludge villain is free. Well, no, he doesn't turn around and see it, but he turns around and looks down his pockets, realizing that he's not there. And then they hear an explosion. Deku and Kitsuki look at All Might, and All Might looks at them. He then realizes he's about to run out of time, right? And as he then shrinks down into Small Might form, right? Kitsuki is freaking out that their father is All Might, right? And Deku's like, oh, that's kind of cool. You're All Might, huh, Dad? And All Might says to Deku, you can't even take this seriously. And Deku goes, nope. And goes, well, I guess we better go get the sledge villain. And he grabs a hold of Papyrus, right? And while Papyrus is still freaking out that All Might's their father, teleports him over to the sludge villain, right? Who now has Bakugo. Deku just summons 2 Gaster Blasters, right? While Papyrus is just watching. Because he decides to let Deku handle this. And he blasts part of the sludge villain away, including his eye. So the sludge villain is screaming in pain. Because I don't know why he wouldn't. I guess he doesn't have nerves or whatever, but it doesn't matter. So he's screaming in pain, right? And Deku just uses the gravity thing, whatever, I forgot what it's called, and just pulls Bakugo out of the sludge. And so Bakugo thanks Deku for it, for saving him and everything. And they look at the sledge villain who all the sludge came back to him, right? And he turns around at Deku and starts yelling at him, saying how that hurt and everything. And Deku says, whatever, like, why should I care for her that? Sludge villain yells at Deku, and so they're just basically just arguing at this point. And the sludge villain insults Deku, right? And Deku says, well, that was kind of a sloppy delivery. And he gives a side glance at Kitsuki. Kitsuki facepalm and says, that was the worst pun I've ever heard. And he goes, what? It was good. Kitsuki looks at Deku and says, no, that was not a good one. Right? And Deku says, you don't know what comedy is, and looks back at the sledge villain. Right? And just uses his gravity manipulation to put him in a water bottle. Like, he forces him down and forces him into a water bottle, which he ties the lid on tightly. Pro heroes walk up, right, and it's like, what happened here? And Deku throws a water bottle at him and says, I'd recommend keep the lid on. That's the villain. And they all say, wait, what? How'd you kids stop him? And Deku says, it was a piece of cake. And Bakugo says, you really can't be, so what am I thinking? I'm an idiot. So, he says it was a piece of cake. It was so easy, right? And Bakugo says, no, it wasn't. Deku says, what do you mean? You didn't do anything. He goes, I tried to help people. Deku says, you tried, but yet you got stuck in that thing. And so Bakugo and Deku are arguing, and then Katsuki just says, it was easy to defeat him. So we're going to be on our way now, right? And he hurries up and he starts shoving them away from the scene. I don't know. I'm not good at making up these sort of things. So they start to walk away, right? And All Might, in his buffed up form, walks up to him and says, great job, kids, on stopping the sludge villain. Bakugo says, where the hell were you, All Might? All Might says, I had to stop a villain before I showed up here, right? And Deku says, oh, well, that's nice. Well, time to go, Kitsuki. And Kitsuki's like, wait, I want to talk to All Might. And Deku says, we gotta get home in time for dinner. And Kitsuki says, oh, we'll make it just fine. It's gonna be short. And Deku says, whatever, but I'm not teleporting you home. Kitsuki says, whatever, I'll walk. And then Deku's like, alright, fine. And he just teleports home. Right, so after Kitsuki gets to talking to All Might, he walks home, so does Bakugo. When he walks home, he just sees Deku at the table eating, I don't know what he's eating, you can imagine what he's eating, with just a big old bottle of ketchup right there, right next to him. Because he loves ketchup, he absolutely loves ketchup, and if he could, and he loves to, and he's basically just chugging ketchup with whatever he's eating. Kitsuki walks up to Deku, right, and smacks him on the back of the head, saying, you are such a messy eater. Deku says, what? I enjoy food. And so, after they get done eating, right, All Might's there, of course, and All Might, and they said they want to talk to him in the backyard, and so they go out back and they start talking, right? And Kitsuki asks All Might, Why'd you hide it from us? And he goes, well, I didn't, and he just explains why. I don't know why. I am very lazy right now. And so All Might just explains why. Deku's like, oh, cool. Yawn says, I'm kind of tired. Kitsuki says, how are you tired? You sleep all day. Deku goes, yeah, but that's not enough. It's alright, fine, go to bed. And Deku's like, yay. He walks in the door and he goes up to his room and falls asleep. So Kitsuki stays outside for a little bit talking to All Might, and then he goes up to his bed, right? Except it's not that late. It's about 7. It's about 7, I'd say. And so Deku's asleep. He has another dream. Almost all of his dreams, he ends up meeting with Sans. So he meets up with Sans, right? And so I should say this: what Deku is wearing, right? He's wearing a white T-shirt, some shorts, and some Nikes, some black Nikes, right? And so, basically, imagine what Sans wears, right? Except without the blue parka, and instead of slippers, they're black Nikes, right? So that's basically what Deku wears. So they're just sitting there, talking and stuff, right? And Sans says, you basically act just like me, kid." And Deku says, "Really? I didn't notice." And Sans looks at him kind of dumbfounded, saying, "How did you not notice?" He goes, "What do you mean? I've always acted like this." And he goes, "No, you didn't. You used to actually like doing work and everything." And he goes, "Yeah, I guess I see your point." So they just start talking and everything, right? And so Deku's like, "Yeah, I'm feeling kind of hungry right now. I think I'm gonna go wake him, give me something to eat." And Sans says, "All right, bye." And he looks at Deku and he says, "Sans." And right as Deku punched himself to wake himself up, he's like, he just goes. See, he goes into the kitchen, grabs a bottle of ketchup, and grabs some leftover food, dumps ketchup on it, and just eats it. He then puts his his plate in the washing machine. He then just opens up the lid on the ketchup and just chugs some of it, puts it back in the refrigerator, and goes back up to bed. And when he falls asleep, he asks Sans, "Hey, why'd you call me Sans?" And Sans says, "Well, you act just like me. You almost dress just like me. You have all my powers. You're basically just me with skin." Deku goes, "Yeah, fair point." And Deku says, "So, Sans, do you have any family?" And Sans says, "Yeah, I do actually." He says, "I have a brother." Deku asks, "What's his name?" Sans says, "Papyrus." Deku says, "That's an interesting name." Sans says, "Yeah, we both have interesting names." And so they just start chatting about everything. They're telling jokes to each other and laughing. Right? And so Sans says, "It's about time for you to wake up." And Deku says, "Oh, great. I have to go to school now?" And Sans says, "No, you idiot. Don't you remember yesterday was the last day of school?" Deku says, "So why should I wake up?" Sans says, you're about to miss breakfast." And Deku immediately stands up and punches himself in the face. And he wakes up, right? And he wakes up, right? And he looks around. His brother's not in bed. So he runs downstairs. Inka says, "It's about time you woke up, sleepyhead," while she's making breakfast. Deku starts to eat. God damn it. He's eating his breakfast and everything with the big old thing of ketchup right next to him. Just eating his breakfast and chugging the ketchup and everything. His brother says, "You really love ketchup, don't you?" Deku says, "Yeah, I love ketchup." And Papyrus says, "Why do you just chug it like that?" And Sans goes, "Why shouldn't I?" His brother says, "'Cause it's disgusting." Deku says, "No, it's not. It's absolutely delicious." And they go sit down, right? And Deku says, I'm gonna go for a walk, right?" And his brother says, "Okay." Deku walks out the door. 5 seconds later, he comes back in saying, Never mind, I hate walking." And his brother just laughs as Deku sits on the couch, right? And so they start watching TV and stuff. Deku has a phone. And he asks his brother, hey, Kitsuki. "Hey, Kitsuki, you want to go train?" And his brother's like, "Wait, we never train." And Deku's like, "Yeah, well, if we want to get into UA, we should probably train." His brother's like, "Okay, fine." Right, so they get done training, right? And so they're just about to go inside. Deku says, "I'm going to go head in now," right? They trained for about, I'd say, 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours. And so his brother says, "All right, Sans." And Deku looks back at him and says, "What'd you call me?" He says, "I called you Izuku." Right? And Deku says, yeah. And walks in kind of feeling strange about it. And so he walks in, right? And so he walks in, right, feeling very, very strange about it. Why his brother called him Sans. His brother doesn't have any of these dreams, I should say. He has normal dreams about whatever. And so while they're just hanging out around the house, Deku gets a call on his phone. He has a phone. His mom bought him a phone. And it's from Bakugo, right? And he just sits and he says, "Yo, what's up, Pomeranian?" Bakugo, and his phone wasn't on speaker, but his mom from the kitchen could hear Bakugo yelling, "What did you call me, you?" And San says, Deku, god damn it, Deku says, "Don't be a knucklehead." And Bakugo stops and says, "That made absolutely no sense. There was no context." And Deku says, "I didn't want to mess up the opportunity." Bakugo says, "What opportunity?" Deku just says, let's move on from this conversation, okay? "So, what do you want to talk about?" Bakugo says, "I just want to see if you guys want to hang out, right? If that was okay with you guys." Deku says, "Yeah, sure, I'll ask Kitsuki, right?" And he says to Kitsuki, Hey, you want to go hang out with Bakugo?" Kitsuki says, "Yeah, sure, why not?" Right, so Deku says, "Alright, where do you want to meet up?" Bakugo says, "The mall." Deku says, "Alright, fine." Deku says, "We'll be there in a couple seconds." And so Bakugo says, "Alright," and hangs up. And Deku stands up and is about to walk out the door. And he says, "Hurry up, Papyrus, we're going to be late." And his brother turns around and is like, "What did he call me?" He gets dressed and heads out the door, right? And so when he heads out, Deku puts his hand on his brother's shoulder and says, but Kitsuki pauses and says, "Hey, Deku." Oh, he calls him Izuku. And he says, "Hey, Izuku, what did you call me back there?" And Deku says, "I called you Kitsuki." Kitsuki says, "No, you didn't." And he goes, "Yuck, can't talk." Izuku says, "Oh, what'd I call you?" And Kitsuki says, "You call me Papyrus." And Deku kind of freezes and says, "Oh, sorry, you act a lot like this person I know." Kitsuki says, "Oh, well, I'd like you to introduce me to this person someday. I'd like to meet him." And Deku says, "Alright." And they teleport over to the mall. And they start meeting up, right? And Deku, he has his own money from what little chores he does. And while they're shopping, right, Deku sees this blue parka, right? And he absolutely loves the look of it. It's about, I'd say about $50. All he has is 45, right? And so he walks up to his brother and says, "Hey, yo, Katsuki." Katsuki says, "What?" And he says, "Can I borrow $5?" Katsuki asks, "Why?" He says, "I really want to buy this parka." And he points at it and Katsuki says, "Really? You really want to spend all your money on that?" And he goes, "Yep." And Katsuki says, "No," because he says, so Deku says, "So will you lend me the money?" Katsuki says, "No, because if I do, I'll never get it back." And Deku says, "Well, can I have $5?" And Deku starts begging him to give him $5 until Izuku says, sorry, Katsuki says, "All right, shut up and I'll buy it." Deku shouts, "Yes!" and grabs the parka, walks over to the counter, slams down 45. Katsuki walks up, slams down $7 because tax and everything. I think I don't know how Japan works. Let's just say there was tax on it. I don't know. And Deku grabs the parka right after he pulls out the price tag, puts it on, and he puts his hands in his pocket and says, "This is the best thing ever." And they start walking out, right? And his brother asked him, "So why do you like that parka so much?" And Deku says, "I have no idea. I just really like it." And his brother says, "Okay, whatever." And so they start hanging out, right? They eat food. And Deku says, "I gotta go to the bathroom," right? Sorry. Yeah. So after he gets out, right, Bakugo and Kitsuki are walking away because they just finished eating. And Kitsuki shouts to Deku, "Hey, Sans, hurry up! We're heading over to, let's say that this mall has an arcade room, right?" Bakugo looks at Kitsuki and says, "What'd you just call him?" Kitsuki says, "I called him Izuku." Bakugo says, "No, you called him Sans. Who the hell is Sans?" Kitsuki's like, "Did I? I don't know." And Deku teleports over to him and teleports over to Kitsuki and says, "Why'd you call me Sans?" And Kitsuki says, "I have no idea." And so Deku's now feeling extremely weirded out, right? So they have fun at the mall. They then head home, right? And Deku says, "I'm gonna go take a nap." His brother says, "When don't you take a nap?" Deku says, probably when I'm asleep. That's the only time I don't take naps is when I'm asleep." And Kitsuki says, "That makes no sense." While Deku just walks off and goes up to his room and falls asleep. So while he's asleep, he meets up with Sans and he goes, "So Sans, I got a question for you." Sans goes, "Sure, what is it?" And he goes, "My brother has been calling me Sans now. Started calling me Sans." And Sans like, "Wait, what? What do you mean?" He goes, "Randomly, without knowing it, he'll call me Sans and doesn't even notice he's doing it." Deku and Sans says, "Well, you've become Sans now, ain't that right, Sans?" Deku says, Really? You're just gonna say that now?" And Sans says, "Yep." So they started talking, and Deku says, and I called him Papyrus for some reason." Sans says, Wait, you did what?" And Deku says, "Yeah, I don't know why, it sounded more natural to say that than his own name, so I said it without even realizing." Sans says, "That is the strangest thing. I have no idea why." So when he wakes, he says, "All right, I'm gonna go wake up now, right?" And Deku's about to punch himself in the face, and Sans says, "Stop. I think there's a better way of doing it." And Deku says, "What?" And he says, "Just pinch your arm." And he goes, "Oh, why didn't I think of that?" He pinches his arm and he immediately wakes up. And he walks down, right? And so So he walks down, right? And so when he walks down, Kitsuki says, "Hey, Sans, what do you want to watch on TV?" Right? Deku says, walks into him and says, "Hey, Kitsuki, you called me Sans again." Kitsuki's like, "I don't know why I'm calling you that." And Deku says, "It's fine, you can call me it if you want to." Kitsuki says, "Alright, Sans." Just starts calling him that. Deku now feeling extremely weirded out every time he says it. So I watch TV, right? We're going to skip to the beginning of UA. So, Deku has become extremely smart, right? Without even knowing it. He knows so much things. His IQ is about, I would say it's about half of what Sans is. Actually, no, I don't know. I actually don't remember what Sans' IQ is. I'm going to say Deku's IQ is now in the 400s. Right? He's basically as smart as Nezu. Wait, I forgot how smart Nezu was. Oh well. So, I'm gonna just say his IQ, that Deku's IQ is in the 400s, and he's basically at Nezu's IQ. So he walks up to 1A, right, UA, sorry. He's wearing his blue parka, his t-shirt, and his shorts and Nike shoes, and walks up to the front, to the door, right, walks in, and during the meeting, he falls asleep, right, and he's falling asleep, right. And so at this point, they just started Deku and Kitsuki just started calling each other Sans and Papyrus just because it felt more natural than calling each other their own names. I mean, like, why? So they just do this, right? I'm gonna just start saying Sans instead of Deku, so I don't yell at myself when I get it mixed up anymore. So Sans is basically asleep, right, during the lecture. He is sitting right behind Ida. Papyrus is sitting a ways away, so he doesn't really see Deku sleeping. Deku has his hood up and everything. And so while Deku's asleep, he starts snoring, right? So Ida stands up, yells at President Mike about the whole 0 point thing, and he turns around and he yells at Deku, says, "Why did you fall asleep? Why are you always sleeping? It's so distracting. This is very important." And just goes off on him. And Deku wakes up and is like, "Oh, God, Jesus, what did I do?" And Ida says, "You were asleep." And Deku's like, "Oh, really? Oh." He stretches out and he yawns and says, "Okay, well, wake me up when this is over." And he puts his head up, and Ida starts yelling at him some more. Just Sans still completely passed out, not even caring. Ida says whatever and sits back down. So when everyone stands up, right, he gets handed where he's supposed to go. Because he wakes up due to all the noise and he walks over there. Papyrus smacks him on the back of the head and says, "Sans, when can..." Okay, it just feels weird calling him Papyrus and Sans. I'm going to go back to their old names. Deku walks up, right, and Kitsuki smacks Deku on the back of the head and says, "Sans, when aren't you going to go ahead and fall asleep?" Deku says, "I have no idea when, but..." Deku says, "Never, I'll sleep whenever I want. Nobody can stop me." Kitsuki says, "You're an idiot." And Deku says, Yes, I am. Right? And they go and they do the written test. Deku gets the highest score possible. He then, there were some mistakes, right? And so he completely rewrote some of the questions. And he completely changed them to basically what they were asking. He then gave a detailed answer. And he got the highest score possible, basically. I think Nezu's was either the highest or Nezu was the only one who got close to the highest. So he basically got Nezu's score, or let's just say Nezu didn't get the highest, but he got super close, and Deku got the highest, right? And he got it in I'd say 40 seconds, right? He finished the entire test in 40 seconds, walks up, hands it, and President Mike says, "There's no way you did it that fast." And he goes, "Go over it then." President Mike goes over it and says, "God damn, kid, you're smart." And Dex goes, Really? I thought that test was just easy. He yawns and then he goes, so what do I do for now? And says, I guess you can sleep. Deku says, yes! Walks over, pulls up his hood, sits down, leans back, and falls right asleep. And so he wakes up, right? And it's time. So when he wakes up, it's time for the physical exam. He goes over there. He goes over to where they're supposed to be. And he asks Kitsuki, he says, hey, Pap, I guess. No, what am I saying? Papyrus. Hey, Papyrus, what'd you get on the test? What do you think? How well did you think you do? Papyrus says, I think I did average. Shan says, oh, that's good. And they said, so, when's this thing going to start? And President Mike says, alright, on the count of 3. And he says basically what he says, and then he just shouts, go! And Shan's like, oh, crap. Alright, well, see you, little brother. Turns around, does he's walking backwards, and he does finger guns at him. He then hops frontwards and skips like 2 steps. He then teleports. Teleports right in front of a robot, and he goes, I was kind of hoping you'd be a little ways back. He then holds out his hand. His left eye glows blue. His right eye is completely black. And he's holding his hand upwards, and he pushes it downwards. The entire robot just breaks inwards and into the ground. Right? All Might is watching this, and he's smiling because he knows that they could do this easily. Virus goes off. He's destroying robots. Right? Deku walks up to another robot. Right? He holds out his hands. He moves over and he slams, and he goes over to the side, and a whole bunch of bones come out of nowhere and just impale the robot into a building. Deku then grabs a hold of the building, right, and slams it down into the ground on top of the robot, right? And so he's going around, he's just destroying this mass of robots. He's getting amazingly high points. Alright, and then the 0 pointers come out, and he goes, well, that's totally alleviate my boredom, and he starts destroying 0 pointers for no reason. So he's actually doing pretty good, right? But then he hears Uraraka scream. Wait, no. I'm going to change this up. Instead of Uraraka screaming, it's, I'm going to just say, I don't know. I'm going to just say Momo was actually in this one. Was actually in that group. And Momo was the one screaming. So Deku walks over, right? He uses the gravity ability. And he throws says she had a big boulder on her legs, right? And stuff. He grabs a hold of it and he throws it up at the 0 pointer, right? And it hits it and it goes straight into its head. He then pulls the 0 pointer back forward towards him, but stops it. He then summons this big sharp bone. He throws it and it hits it and it pierces straight through and it launches it up into the air, right? So while it's up in the air, he summons 4 Gaster Blasters and he blows that thing to smithereens. And he uses his gravity thing, whatever it's called, to put all the pieces down. He then walks over, picks up Momo, and takes her to Recovery Girl because she hurt her foot pretty bad. And Momo says, "Thank you for curing me," and Deku says, "No problem." See, he's not at all nervous because he doesn't mind talking to people because he likes telling jokes and everything. And so at the end, right, they're giving their scores. Deku says, he walks up to All Might, right, and he says, "Hey, All Might." And All Might says, "Oh, hey, young Midoriya." And he shows All Might his score, and All Might's jaw drops and goes, "Holy shit, crap! That's an amazing score," right? I don't know what score to be. I'm going to just say that his fitness, on the physical exam, I'm going to say he got, I'd say 20 points higher than All Might. And on the written exam, he got just above Nezu. Right? And so All Might talks to Nezu about this, right? And so Nezu's like, "I am extremely excited to meet this student." So they get their letter, right? And Deku reads and goes, "Yay!" all sarcastically and, tired-like. And he goes, "Yay, I made it." Waves it around and then hands it to his mom. Inka reads it and is super excited for him. Pyrus reads it, right? He got a pretty good score. He got average on the written test, and he got But you did pretty good on the physical exam. Deku got a bunch of hero points. And that's where I'm going to leave it off. This is really long, and there was a lot of mistakes, so I hope you guys can forgive me, but this is my very first what if ever.